Welcome to the Narcissist Apocalypse podcast, a show that gives a voice to narcissistic abuse survivors. I am Brandon Chadwick, but my friends call me Chad, and thank you for showing up this episode. So what is a narcissist, you may ask? Generally speaking, a narcissist is a person who has an excessive sense of how important they are. They demand and expect to be admired and praised by others and are limited in the capacity to appreciate others' perspectives. And guess what? Not all our narcissists are made equal. Yes, that's true. Narcissism is a character trait that exists on a spectrum. A small amount of narcissism is healthy, and a person with an unhealthy level of narcissism may be called a narcissist. At extreme levels, it may be diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. However, for the purposes of this podcast, a narcissist is a person who exhibits narcissistic traits and or a consistent pattern of maladaptive narcissistic behaviors, regardless of whether they meet the diagnostic criterion in the latest version of the DSM manual or have a formal diagnosis. So a person may be referred to as a narcissist on this podcast, even if it is more likely they have another cluster B personality disorder, such as borderline, histrionic, or antisocial personality disorder, so as long as they exhibit narcissistic traits or behaviors. And now, with all of that out of the way, let me tell you that we have a narcissist abuse survivor named Sunny on this episode. But before we get to that interview, I just want to thank everyone for listening to the show and emailing me all those nice things you've been emailing me. So it means a lot to me. Doing the show is being quite the blessing. So thanks to all of you out there for sending me nice notes. And if you haven't left us a review yet, on whatever podcast service you use, if it's Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, CastBox, etc., leave us a 5-star review. It helps out the show a lot. You know, say some nice things about us on there too. Also, if you want to be on the show, you can always reach out at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com. Just drop us a line and we'll start communicating with you. We'll do like a back and forth, some interviewing. We have a longer vetting process these days. So if you want to read a letter to your narcissist on our show, we have a voicemail recorder on our website. To record, go to narcissistapocalypse.com. It's on the right side of the page, and it's always floating around. It's hard to miss. We're accumulating these letters to have a volume 2 of our letters to a narcissist episode. And because we don't have enough of these yet, I can't hang out with Melissa. However, there's a second part to that soon. We're recording a special pop culture episode next weekend. It'll be a watch-along episode. What does that mean? At first, we're going to watch the movie Forrest. We were going to watch the movie The Notebook, but what happened was Netflix took it actually down today. So we started to realize what else is out there that we can discuss that has to do with narcissism. And we came up with Forrest Gump, and we're going to discuss the relationship between Forrest and Jenny. Will we be pro-Jenny or anti-Jenny? Who knows? But one thing we do know that we will both agree on is Forrest Gump really got the short end of the stick on that one. What else is going on? Well, we started to build our new website, and, well, I guess the ground is going to be unearthed on Tuesday of our building. And part of that site will have a fully niche directory for PhD psychologists and psychiatrists, social workers who have a master's of social work, licensed therapists who have gone through narcissistic abuse themselves, lawyers and mediators with experience in this field, everyone who has experience with relationship and childhood narcissistic abuse. In my experience, when going through Psychology Today or Good Therapy Directory, to find help for many of you out there, it really wasn't easy to weed through all of the profiles to try and find the right therapists or lawyers or mediators that you need. So we decided here that the best thing to do is to create our own directory to make it easier for everyone to find the help they need, and hopefully will be a place that can facilitate everything like that for you. So if you're professional, like one of the ones I have mentioned already, and you're a listener to the show and you want to be one of the first people on the directory, shoot me an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com and we can discuss that further. Another thing that we're going to be doing soon is fundraising. Sometimes we have folks on this show that need extra help in their healing process and need proper trauma therapy, but can't afford it. So we want to help everyone once our site is built. So we'll be able to fully focus on getting that started as well once everything is built. And I'm pretty excited about that little venture. And besides that, socially, I chit-chatted and got to know a couple of you out there this week. So a big shout out to them. And also a big shout out to Elizabeth, who was once on our show, just for being you this week. And you know why. So a big shout out to Elizabeth, and I'm sending you a big virtual hug. And now I am going to get out of my own way. Here is my interview with Sunny, and I'll check back with you all when it's over. And we are here today with Sunny. Thank you for coming on the show today, Sunny.
Hi, glad to be here.
So now I am just going to get out of your way, and I'm going to give you the floor to tell your story. And thank you once again for being on the show.
Okay, so I met these two guys a few years ago, about 4 now. I met them through a friend of mine that I met in college, and he had introduced me to the first guy. His name, we can call him Andrew, because it gets a little confusing if you don't have names.
Yeah, so what are we going to call him?
Yeah. We'll call him Andy.
Andy, okay.
Yeah, because he doesn't like that name, so feels good. Andy, and he had this friend, is it okay? It's a really common name. Is it okay if I use his real name?
Just try and come up with something real. Let's call him Phil.
Bill. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Bill's actually a really good. Yeah.
Bill.
Okay,
Bill.
I like that one. We'll call him Bill or William. How about that?
Which one do you like? William? Or do you like William?
William. Yeah.
Okay,
I think the formal name. Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Name. Andy and William. They were really good friends for a really long time, and so I met Andy first, and then he introduced William to me and a couple other people that I was also friends with, and we all kind of got along right away. We would hang out, it just smoke weed because that's what we do out here in California, and then we'd go out to bars because I was 21 finally, so. We just hang out, and I got to know them really well. And then eventually, with Andy, things kind of turned into a more, sexual relationship. We were kind of just hanging out, I guess what you would call friends with benefits. I wasn't really interested in really dating anybody, but, it was kind of fun. And there was a lot of just drama that came up with it. And for a really long time before I met them, I didn't really go out of my house a lot. I didn't have a lot of friends. My friends were starting to move away and stuff. And so I was just more focused on school. Then I met these people. And so it was oh my God, I leave my house and now I have drama. And so I would hang out with him a lot, and it just was just always a bad feeling, the whole time. I just felt heavy and sad and depressed, and he'd argue with me a lot, and a lot of just typical abuse tactics, gaslighting and stuff like that. And so I just felt so confused, and then he would stop talking to me, and I didn't talk to him for a really long time, and that kind of happens intermittently. We don't talk for a long time, and then all of a sudden he pops up out of nowhere and hoovers me back in. So in the time that I get to know Andy, I also get to know William, and, I end up really liking William, and that made Andy really jealous, and he stopped talking to me because of that. So it was, it's just so frustrating. Sorry, I'm just reliving every moment now, and I'm oh my God, this is just a lot of just tension and just static. That's kind of how it feels. It just feels a bunch of just static that just drives you up a wall. So I get to know, I start having all of these really interesting, just really intense feelings for William. And I'm like, you know, always talking to him, like really hoping that he'll text me, call me. And it just like, it was always just so off and on, like hot and cold. And I didn't understand it. And I thought, oh, maybe he's just busy. Maybe he just like, you know, has other things to do. And I was like, I'm not entitled to anybody's time, you know? And so eventually I got ballsy, and I just said, hey, like, I really like kind of like you, and I would be really interested in, like, you know, hanging out more and stuff. And oh my gosh, I'm totally like flailing here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. Take your time. Take your time.
Because, like, I mean, I did forget, like, an important part. So just to back up.
Okay.
When Andy found out that I did like his friend, he got, like I said, really upset, and he tells me that that William will hit me, that he will hurt me, that he will abuse me. And I didn't really know what to feel and believe, because with Andy, it was constantly like, you know, I was being manipulated constantly. Like he's really good at manipulating people. He's very quiet about it. And I remember one time I actually, like, when I found out about what gaslighting was, it was because of just an argument that we had gotten into, and I felt so like confused. I was quote unquote lying a lot to him. And I was always being accused of a liar, and I was like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I just looked up some YouTube videos, and I found some that were about gaslighting, and I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And, you know, so I wasn't too sure if I could believe what he was saying. You know, I was like, is this another manipulation tactic on his part? Like, you know, and I felt like because our arguments were always so long and drawn out, I was just ran in circles and just ran into the ground. So
just for 1 second, I interrupt.
Yeah.
For everyone listening, if they didn't understand anything that was just said, because we went back in the story, Andy, who is the original person you were talking about, is a gaslighter. Is not the most mature person here in a relationship, and he's now told a story about the actual person that you do like, who is William, and he's told you that he is actually physically abuses women, and you don't know whether to believe him.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So I was, again, like just super confused and unsure. And he was telling me that I needed to, he's like, well, if you want to like continue like hanging out, and, you know, we weren't like in an actual relationship. So he's like, if you want to keep doing this, like, don't talk to him. You should block his number. And I did for a couple weeks. And then I was like, what am I doing? Why am I listening to this person? Like, this isn't okay. So I did end up unblocking his number. And I started talking to William again. And at that time I had stopped talking to Andy completely, and had no intention of ever really talking to him again. And so then it was almost about a year before I finally then I had said something to William, like, hey, I like you. And so it started to move really fast. Like when I finally did say something, and at first he said that he wasn't interested in like a committed relationship or anything like that. And I really didn't know what I was interested in either. I just really wanted to get to know this person on a different level, which is really important to the story. A little bit later. So I realized, like, again, like it's moving really fast. And one day we're talking, and I mentioned something kind of about like something that happened with me and Andy that, you know, it was kind of like I don't talk to him, or kind of like why I don't talk to him anymore or something. Like I thought, you know, like and to add context, like these two guys have known each other for a really long time. They've met when they were 11. They're now 27. So, they are longtime friends. And so I thought, it was weird that they weren't really talking at all. Like, they hadn't talked in probably about a year at this point also. And he gets really upset because then he asks me if I had, a sexual relationship with him. And I had no reason to lie. And I was just like, yeah, I did. And that's when all of the abuse started. And it was horrible. It was constant arguments. Constant, like, I'm going to break up with you, and then going back on his word, or like, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to keep you here if you keep wanting to break up with me. Like, I'm not going to do this to myself. And then I would end up getting manipulated back into the situation. And, kind of go back into that cycle of like having like maybe a couple good hours, not even like, he couldn't even give me a couple of days or even a week of like, decent behavior. Like, it was nearly 24/7, like awful, awful, awful. He was always over at my house. I have a male roommate, and who's a really, really good friend of mine, and somebody who I absolutely respect. I feel extremely, safe around. Like, I really value this person, and that constantly made him jealous. Always, just like, he never was upfront about that because he would always kind of triangulate to the situation with Andy, because he's like, you did this and you did that, and it was like. But then there were times where he would bring my roommate into it, and that's why he would always like want to stay the night at my house, and my roommate would get frustrated, and I mean, rightfully so. I would too, and I would try my best to like, say like, okay, hey, let's stay at your house, like, let's do this, like, let's stay out of the house, because my roommate, he needed his space, like, and I'm not going to do that to him. I, again, value this person. And it just made him so jealous. And I remember one time we got into this argument because my roommate wanted to talk to me about something. It was about my boyfriend at the time. And he also was upset that I hadn't done dishes. And, I was like, okay, I am really sorry about that. Like, we had, just like a friendly discussion about like, hey, you're not holding up your end in the house. Like, hey, you need to do that. And so I was like, all right, we'll talk more later. Like, and when I came out of like the hall, my boyfriend was like, why don't you talk to me like that? Like, why can't we have arguments like that? Like, and he was, putting it on me, gaslighting me, telling me that like I was the problem in the relationship. And I was just so floored, so angry. And to back up a little bit too, there were times where when, there was a point where Andy was really jealous of my roommate. My roommate and I were still just like friends at the time. We didn't live together, but he would like be weird about him too. And so that was like kind of like a red flag for me. And just so everybody knows, like, my relationship only lasted 3 months. Like, it was 3 months of just consistent everyday anger, like, and rage and argument. So it just was just like red flag, red flag, red flag. And I felt like I couldn't really like I had like this armful of red flags that I just like kept trying to pick up. And that's why I was so stuck in this relationship in a way that was just like constantly throwing things at me that were confusing. But things would get really bad. Like, he would scream at me. He would verbally abuse me. There were times where he would tell me that I was a bad girlfriend. He called me a slut a few times. he definitely used the word bitch on me a few times. For his birthday, we went to Vegas and we had a really big blowout fight on the day of his birthday. He followed me around the house the whole time, just like staring at me, just like building with anger. I remember I woke up and I walked downstairs, and his parents owned a house out in Vegas, and so that's where we went. And I just remember walking down the stairs and I see him drinking a beer at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I just like knew that this was not going to be a good day. Like this was a fuck day. Like it's bad. And I tried to take a shower. And he got mad at me because I was like getting ready on my own. And I'm an only child. And I can sit in silence for a very long time, and I do things just by myself. So I just was like, I'm not doing anything different. Like, why am I disrupting like myself? Like, what is wrong with me? Like, is there something wrong with me that I can't do this? Like, am I supposed to, constantly like do things with you?
So at what point you're in this relationship for 3 months in total?
Yeah, from like August until December.
And at what point, what happened that eventually made you leave it completely?
So it was again that cycle of like good and bad, and the constant promises of like I'm going to do better, like I'll be better for you. I finally had it. I was tired. I was scared of him. I mean, I was scared of him. So I just kept thinking about the fact that like I had not only myself to worry about, but I did have a roommate who lived with me, and I couldn't put either of us in an unsafe situation. And when Andy told me about what kind of person William was, he also told me that there were times where he would threaten suicide with his girlfriend, that he was going to kill himself if they broke up with him. And so I was also kind of like afraid of that happening, and it's also really hard to feel kind of like innocent or like I'm not to blame a little bit because like I knew this before, but like also I tell myself constantly like I didn't cause this, like I didn't know what to think. Sorry, I was having like a moment of self-doubt.
So once it's over in your process, in your mind, was it like a sense of relief that you had, or were you confused? What happened in the aftermath for you?
Oh, it was absolutely a sense of relief. I was calling domestic violence, like hotlines. I was chatting online. I just want, if there's women right now that are listening and are in abusive relationships or please utilize the DV hotlines. Like, you can chat online or call. And I mean, it helped so much. Like it helped. And so I was, kind of doing like a little bit of work like on myself before I exited the relationship. And so I definitely felt more like relief. I felt like I cried all that I could possibly cry. I felt, as horrible as I possibly could. And so I remember I called him. I did not break up with him in person. I couldn't do that because I knew what would happen if I did. I called him. I told him that this was done. I'm not doing this. He tried to give me, long like monologues about why he's so like traumatized and like his wife is so bad and whatever. And then he actually drove down to my house. And I was like, I did not ask you to come here. This is not okay. Please do not come to my door. I will not be okay with that. And like, as I was saying that, I was actually going around locking my doors. My roommate sat in the living room, as I did this. Like he sat there for moral support. Like I was just like freaked out that he was going to do that, especially when he drove down to my house, at that point. And So I told him that he needed to get his stuff, and he had a couple things actually in my car. I unlocked it. He grabbed them out. I left some stuff on the porch, and he left. And I haven't heard from him since. The last thing that he said to me was, "Do you hate me?" And I don't. And I genuinely was like, "No, I don't hate you. I don't believe that I have to forgive him, but I don't hate him." And that was definitely kind of like a really freeing moment. And I think because I had done that work before exiting the relationship, that I was able to like safely, or not safely, but just come to that moment and be able to genuinely say that in the moment. Like, I still have moments where I'm angry and I'm mad at him, but I never hate him.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And it's something you brought up before we turned the recorder on. And that was something you said about that maybe why you found yourself in this situation to begin with, that this situation might have been, you were drawn to the situation possibly based upon how you were raised.
Yes.
So can you explain that to me? And let's talk about your childhood.
Yeah, no, I definitely do want to dive into that because it definitely ties really well back into this whole thing. So I grew up in a household in a broken home, technically. So my mom, she had me when she was 17. She did it all on her own. My grandparents are very, very narcissistic, and my dad was a drug addict. He would steal cars, and so he kind of just left my life. And the best thing that my mom ever did for me was tell my dad that he was not allowed to see me. And he was abusive. He would physically abuse my mom. My grandpa can be very physically abusive. He wasn't abusive physically with my grandmother, but he was with the kids. He was with me and my cousins. And again, some context. I grew up like I said, I was an only child, but I grew up in a household where I was watched over with my cousins a lot. So we kind of formed more of a sisterly bond. We're all girls. And we all started to kind of align ourselves just according to our birth order. And also I can see where I was sometimes the golden child. My cousin was sometimes the golden child. Like, we had that kind of dynamic because we were always so put together with each other. So my aunt, one of my cousin's moms, she was in a relationship with someone who was very abusive. Extremely physically abusive. My uncle, he was abusive with us too, me and my cousins. He dislocated one of my cousin's arms one time, and that wasn't his daughter. He was a horrible person, and was so angry all the time and would yell. And what's so crazy, Chad, is that sometimes when William would get so angry and scream and yell at me, he sounded exactly like my uncle. Like, exactly. Like, same cadence in his voice, the same, just tone and everything. It was insane how, it was my uncle. And, pretty much every woman in my family has been physically abused. My grandpa, when I was on this, I went on a trip with him, and we were out visiting my uncle, my mom's oldest brother, and he is also physically abusive with his wife and the women that he dates, and his children. And I remember there was this one day where we were all getting ready for bed, and my grandpa was showing me something on a map. And my little cousin, my uncle has two young kids. And she comes up and she's just being a 7-year-old, kind of, poking at the map, talking to us. And my grandpa gets really mad and smacks her hand and tells her to get away. And I had all of these emotions come rushing up, and I got really, really scared, really, really sad, really, really angry. And I yelled at him, and I told him that he cannot put his hands on her like that. I'm like, it is not okay, just do not do that. And of course, he got mad at me, told me that I, shouldn't disrespect him kind of thing. And it was just so frustrating. But I was like, oh my gosh, these subtle acts of violence, that occurred in my life growing up, taught me it was okay. And I didn't even realize that there were times where I was being physically abused by William. It was, very subtle acts of violence. There was one time that he pushed me down, and he kind of pinned me there for a moment. And he's very strong. He was very athletic, so he worked out. And so he had a lot of strength. And he would push me sometimes if he didn't want me to come near him. If I came up and hugged him, he'd push me away. He hit me with a door during that fight, that really big argument that we had. I tried to come back in the house to get my stuff because he told me I had to leave and I had to go home. And luckily I drove there, and I should have just left. I should have just left him there, but I didn't. And I kind of regret that, but also I'm not trying to regret anything. And I walk back into the house, and I see him hesitate, and I see him look at me, and I'm like, what is he going to do? And he doesn't do it hard, but he pushes the door, and it hits me. And I'm like, I can't believe that he just did that. And then he did it a second time. He did it twice in a row. As I tried to walk back in, he hit me with the door again. And I was absolutely afraid of him from then on. Absolutely afraid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm falling into the same patterns that the women in my family have, my female role models have. And, I'm starting to date the men in my life.
So where are your cousins in all of this? And where are they now? Did you discuss any of this with them? And are they falling into the same traps that you did and their parents did?
Absolutely. Not to answer that real quick, but yeah, absolutely. So I'm the oldest, and I have a cousin who's a year younger than me, and she grew up as an only child as well. So her and I were really close. And she moved to Oklahoma when we were kids, so she lives in a different state than I do, and she hasn't been back since. She'll come back for summers and stuff. She'll visit periodically here and there, much less now that we're older. But she definitely is having problems. I would definitely say she's the runner of the family. If I had to put a term to it, I kind of was reading a little bit about there's the runner, the rebel, after kind of, I guess, who you turn into after the abuse when you're older.
Mm-hmm. The dysfunctional family terms. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the rebel. I've always been the first one to be you suck. But yeah, my cousin, she's definitely got a long way to go, and her mom is very, very narcissistic and has caused a lot of problems for me. Also, so I can see why she's in that position. I have a cousin who's 2 years younger, and she's a wonderful person. She lives out in Texas now. She used to live out here, and yeah, she ended up in a pretty gnarly relationship. She had a guy pull the suicide card on her. Mm-hmm. She now has a boyfriend who's a really wonderful person. I absolutely am so happy for her. They came to visit shortly, actually, right when I started dating my ex, and I had a really good time with them, and it was my first time meeting her boyfriend. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like she's got some work to do too. I'd say she's angry. She's definitely angry, and she's definitely the rebel like I am.
But you guys are all open about what happened, and you talk about it and how screwed up it was, and you're a good support group for each other. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and I do have actually one more cousin. Sorry, there's 4 of us, and there was she's 5 years younger than me, so she's definitely like it's harder to get to her sometimes, and I don't think she's like ready to see it because my cousin who's 2 years younger, that's her older sister, and their dad was the one who was extremely abusive. And he still, obviously continues to be. And so I know she's pretty traumatized in that respect. And it is hard to talk to her. It is, and I wish I could, because I feel for her. There was this one time when we were kids, my grandpa was really angry with us, and he hit us. He picked up my cousin, kind of threw her to the ground. It was really traumatizing. And I called her one day crying about it, and I was like, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you remember this, and I don't mean to bring up bad memories. I'm like, but it hurt. I'm so sorry. I tried to protect you. I tried. And, it hurts, knowing that was something that happened to us. And so, it causes some difficulties in life, but we're all pretty close.
What's your relationship like with all the older people in your family?
Okay, so my grandpa and I we live together. He kind of moves around a lot. So right now he's staying with me and my roommate. We live in his house, actually.
Oh, so you actually live with your grandfather?
I do, yes. I try to
explain this. Tell me, how does this work?
Okay. It doesn't. I mean, it's hard. It's really difficult for both of us. I mean, my roommate kind of has always had older people in his life, so he kind of knows how to put up with people, older people and their stubbornness. And my grandpa just has no sense of boundaries. He just doesn't care at all about anything, and he starts arguments with me. He yells at me. He will call me names occasionally. He will. I mean, it's really hard, and it's because right now I'm not in a position where I can get out. I am a little bit reliant, and I am thankful for the help, but also it gets thrown in my face a lot. And so, I've been working on how I respond, because that's what I can control. It is tough, because we're also selling the house. We're in the middle of selling this house, which actually is a very wonderful thing, and I'm very excited to be selling this house because every bit of abuse has happened under this roof. I mean, I walk by this spot where, this incident with my grandpa and my cousin happened. I sleep in the same, this was the first house that I ever lived in. And so it's really freeing. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's what's keeping me going.
Yeah, I didn't see this part of the story. I did not see this going this way at all. So you selling that house. You when you get out of that house, do you think you'll be because it sounds already like what's going on. You're able to deal with everything. You're able to keep this person at bay, even though they do affect your life in kind of a negative way. But you're still dealing with them, and I thought you were going to say that maybe your grandfather passed away. I did not expect this.
I know he was very much alive.
So when you are able, once you're out of that, do you think you've done healing yet, or is that when you're going to be able to really do some sort of healing process and be able to move on with your life? Do you think you're stagnant right now in any sort of way?
I think I'm stagnant, but not in a bad way. I think more I'm kind of I like to think of it as an in between. I'm deciding, where to go. I'm saving money. I'm, kind of throwing old things away. I'm taking this opportunity to take stock and, really figure out what find myself a little bit in it all. I started a new job recently. I was actually unemployed through all of the relationship. I started working back in May. I was unemployed from August to May. And so I had some time to like unwind a little bit and like be by myself and lay in bed for days on end. So I feel like once I'm free of this situation, I'm just going to feel a lot more relief.
And where's your mom?
Yeah. So my mom, she's like 2 miles from my house. I used to live with her, and she actually did kick me out at one point. And that's when I moved back here with my grandpa. And it's a tough relationship. It's hard sometimes because she definitely, I actually made notes about this. It's hard to get sympathy out of her sometimes. She has not really been present through my healing process. Like she's been there in some ways, but also like when I try to talk to her about what happened with my ex-boyfriend, like, I of course wanted to tell her pretty much everything because, like I said, it was physically abusive, it was emotionally abusive, and it was also sexually abusive. And, that was such a hard thing to like really like deal with and move on from. And, I would try to talk to her about it and I would get shut out. And, it's so hard to like not have that ability to like talk to my mom about this thing. And I think it has something to do with the fact that it means that she has to unpack her own trauma that she's not ready to unpack.
You're a smart cookie. You really are. You're smart. I mean,
yeah.
You're very good. A lot of people would like, including me. You get angry at a lot of things, and you empathize very well with what everyone else is going through, and I think that's like it's a blessing and probably a curse for you. I'm going to assume.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can just walk into a house and know like what kind of mood somebody is in. Like I can just feel their energies, and I'm really good at just listening and picking up on context clues. Like I used to have this coworker who he was a drinker and just kind of like just not an okay guy, and he needed just some help. And there were just certain stories here and there, and I was like, oh, it makes sense. And then I would have like other coworkers, like, that was like, oh, he drinks and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, he probably shouldn't be drinking on the job, but also like, ask yourself, like, what kind of trauma is causing this? Like, I've also been a receptionist for a very long time, and people who get angry and yell at me, like, I always know that they're mad about something else, but this is who they can yell at, so it's just like, I try to put pieces together as best as I possibly can and not make a judgment call, but just make an understanding, just kind of, in a weird way to like put myself at someone's level, but also not stoop to the level, like just understand it.
What kind of work do you want to get into?
That's really hard. I've been thinking about a lot of different things because, I really like talking to people, and I would definitely love to like help other domestic violence survivors, and just talk to them about their stories and hear them out. I love cats. And I actually started fostering some cats a couple months back. They like little tiny like baby kittens, and I nursed them back to health, and or not back to health, but I just nursed them and taught them how to be cats, and it's a lot of fun. And I've done it plenty of times before. It's not the first time I've done this, and so just taking care of something it's really rewarding, especially an animal that's not going to take advantage of you.
That's interesting. That's interesting. An animal's not going to take advantage of you. I'm listening to you, and I'm not a professional at all, but in my opinion, I mean, you should be working with people. I mean, your ability to empathize with people of all different mental abilities, and no matter how they act towards you, you sound like you're calm.
Yeah. I had to be.
Yeah, like all different types, whatever you choose, what type of background you want to go into. If it's an addiction type counseling or regular counseling or domestic violence, I mean, you sound like you'd be really excellent at whatever you do in that capacity, because it's something that seems like it comes natural to you, and that you have a genuine interest in people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very interested in people's stories. I mean, I've taken lots of writing workshop classes in the past, just in college, and just writing stories. And I do pull a lot from real life, like just things that people tell me about themselves. And I started creating characters a lot. I would do a lot of like online role play, and it was just kind of like a partner-based thing. And I would create
hold on 1 second. You have to just explain this to me and everyone out there who doesn't know online role play. Go. Okay. Tell me everything. This conversation has gone in a way that I did not imagine that at one point we're going to be talking about online role play. I have to know everything.
Okay. I know. No, and see, I'm the same way, so I get it. So online role play. So it's usually forum-based websites like JCI Inc. or JCINK. And like I think the other one was like Envision. There was Pro Boards for a while, and I started doing this when I was 13 because I was totally emo, and I was a big My Chemical Romance fan. And so
Gerard Way.
I mean, I have to bring this up.
So do you watch the Umbrella Academy?
I haven't actually.
Oh, because he wrote the comic.
And I'm such a nerd. I have like a signed copy of the comic. Like,
you know what? I do too.
Yeah. Oh my God!
But I'm not a My Chemical Romance fan. I'm actually just a comic book fan. And he's not the one that was the one that autographed it for me. It was the other person that wrote it with him, I think, who did the drawings.
Yeah.
He's a Brazilian guy, I think.
Though. I'm sorry?
I think he's a Brazilian guy, the guy that did the drawings for him.
Oh, yes. I think it's like something with his name's like Gabriel or Gabrielle.
Yeah, it's Gabrielle something.
Oh, that's so cool.
Anyway, for everyone else out there, I hope you enjoy us nerding out right now.
I love it.
Keep on going.
Yes. Yeah, so I had a friend that introduced it to me, and because I had a lot of online friends, and just being on the internet at 13, this was 2007, and I got really into it because I could create like countless characters and do, have so many different personas, and I stopped for a while, but yeah, and then I picked it up again, and it changed over the time, but you basically just create a bunch of characters, and you meet other people on the internet, and you talk about plot lines, and like the best way that I can explain it to somebody is kind of how Grey's Anatomy works, like that, if that makes sense. Like there's lots of characters that come in and out. There's such like dramatic storylines that just get thrown out of nowhere, but it's fun, and it's a great way to like just disconnect from myself, but also still engage with the real world, because every character that I've ever created has been somebody that I know. Their stories are usually something I'm kind of familiar with. If not, I Google it, and I learn about different things. And so it's, yeah. Why was I talking about this?
I was about to say, how did we get onto the role play to begin with? I completely forgot.
Gosh.
I'll only remember when I listen to this podcast before when I do editing of some sort. I'll be like, that's what we were talking about. But everyone else they probably lost track too. But
oh my gosh.
Anyway, that's role play. Let's get back to your story and your narcissism.
Okay.
Where are you and what's happening next?
Well, like I said, I'm selling the house, or my grandpa, he's selling his house. So I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, in regards to my living situation. So I really do want to kind of branch out and just finally do things on my own. Not have to rely on my grandpa, my mom, because I've been able to take care of myself. It's mostly that they ask, or they kind of give me things here and there, and I don't really ask for it. And then I end up feeling bad about it. Like I did, like I'm forever indebted to them. And so I just want to get to a point in my life where I don't have to do that, where I can like sustain myself financially. Like I'm really working towards that. So,
things are just being held over your head, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Like, just like, oh, see, if I help you, it's always like a guilt trip like that. And I'm like, I'm tired of feeling guilt. Like it's a big emotion that I've always felt, just guilt. Like, in my relationship with both of those other people, like, with Andy and William, it was guilt. Like I felt guilty. Like I did something bad. And I was like, this isn't like, how is this normal? Like, my roommate doesn't make me feel bad about myself. Like, and even when we do have a disagreement, like, we can like be civil about it, and we have a talk, and it lasts 15 minutes. It's not several hours. So it's like, I'm like, why am I guilty? Why do I feel guilty? What did I do? So I always feel like, I'm ready to not feel that anymore. And I'm working on like, letting it go and telling myself like, you're okay. They just want to be angry, and they're going to treat you badly for it.
I have a question about your roommate, who we will call Barry.
We can call him Barry. Oh my gosh.
So Barry, has Barry helped you be a better communicator? Because Barry is a good communicator.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. He's very relaxed. He's very like quiet. We kind of have like a similar upbringing in that we were both only children. So, we can be very quiet at times. And so we get along really well. And I'm sorry, what was the question?
We were talking about Barry, who is your wonderful roommate who has helped you, I assume. At one point, were you a bad communicator, and Barry helped you become a better communicator?
I think, honestly, like, I didn't like the way that my mom communicated things with me. And when we first moved in with each other, I knew how I could how I could be. And I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to be a horrible person to him, because my mom would do things like put the dishes in my room if I didn't clean them, or she was just passive aggressive, and I didn't want to do things like that to him. And so it wasn't necessarily like I had to learn to communicate better. I just said, I'm going to make this conscious decision that I'm going to be a decent human being, for this person, just for the sake of communicating. And so, we've definitely had our hiccups. They always say, the first year is always the hardest. So, just kind of learning certain things about each other. But when I would feel myself getting really like worked up or really angry, thoughts like what my mom would say in these situations would run through my head, and I'd be like, no, I cannot like do that, or I cannot, outwardly react like that. And I always tell people when I talk about like feelings, it's that you should never, you're entitled to feel what you feel. It's what you do with it out in the world that says a lot more. So it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to be, feel like you want to do something petty, but you don't act on those feelings. And, so I just kind of always try to remember that. And so, and like I said, he's just easy to talk to. And he listens. He's a really good listener. That's just what it is. He's a really good listener. He grew up with a mom who kind of put all her needs on him. And so I think that's why we kind of understand each other really well too, because my mom put all her needs on me. It was like, and her sister, like her sister and her were like, I just listened to them all the time, like cry about men or cry about like work, or, like I became like almost a friend to them. Not necessarily like their niece or their daughter. Um, so yeah, we get each other there. And he was really the, like, I think you asked me earlier what was the moment where I was like, I have to get out of this relationship. And it was when Barry and I, when he said, when you get back after, just trying to like put this all together. So after that argument that I had with William about Barry, why don't you talk to me like that? I came home, sat down with Barry, and I was like, what else did you want to talk about? And he says, I'm really concerned about this situation. Like, are you okay? Like, he's like, I want you to get out of this before something really traumatizing could happen. And it was so validating to hear that from him, because I was like, he sees it. He sees what I'm seeing. Like, oh my God, finally, like, I'm not alone, And I was like, you're right. I'm like, I do. And I'm like, I need a plan. Like, and that was like when I really started planning. Like, I moved into what they call the contemplation stage. And I was like, okay, I need to protect myself. Like, how am I going to break up with this person safely? Because when I would talk to my mom about this, she'd be like, well, are you sure? Like, are you sure that you're not just perceiving some danger that isn't there? And I'm like, no, I am afraid. And I also want all you women out there to know that if you feel like you are in like physical danger and you're unsafe, get out as soon as you possibly can. You need to stay safe. Because we naturally have an intuition to tell us that, we need to leave, and we need to listen to that. And so it was bad advice on my mom's part, like, and so it was just so finally validating to hear somebody say, you need to get out. You need to stay safe. He was, the first person that I told about the door. He was the experience too. He would hear me on the phone arguing with him. Like, he, heard me crying so many times. He's like, you just sounded so sad. Like, I'm sorry. But he was like, you just sound so sad. Like, I'm like, damn it, he's right. Like, he knows me too well. Like, I feel so exposed, like, when we talk. I'm like, you're not supposed to see me like that. Ugh. But also, damn it, he's right. Like, it's, it's validating, but it's also painful. And, the other day I had last week was kind of a rough week for me, because I just kept thinking about these like things that happened with William. And, I remembered like just thinking about how I would wake up in the morning, and, I just knew it was going to be a bad day, and I could feel like this heavy presence and this just this dread, this just horrible, horrible dread. And I was making a peanut butter slice of toast. It wasn't even toasted. It was just bread with peanut butter, and I was like trying to finish it, and I was just like, oh my God, I don't have to feel that anymore. And I was just like, I was in so much pain in that moment, but I was just like, what do I do? How do I get this out? And I'm just like, and I was like, I'm just going to emotionally vomit it out. Like, that's all I have to do right now. And I just made all these weird noises. And it's something that I've kind of learned over the years of being really good friends with Barry, that we just do that when we're just so overwhelmed with what's going on in the moment. We're like, and I started doing air kicks around the house, when I get really mad, because, realtors are annoying and they like to schedule things, and showings when you're trying to relax. And it happened this weekend where it was just all these scheduling showings, and we were just frustrated. We're like, ah! And I was just running around the house, just air kicks, and Barry was doing weird hand motions. And then we went and got pizza, and we came home, and it was fine. We were feeling a little bit better.
I just wrote down something on my piece of paper, a T-shirt that we need to make, and this is what the T-shirt's going to say: everyone needs a Barry in their life.
Yes, everybody does need a Barry. Because he definitely has set the basis for, like, you know, what I look for in any type of relationship. Does not matter. It can be familial, romantic, or, you know, a friendship. Like, it just, it sets a basis for me. I'm like, wait a minute. No, they don't meet this standard.
I'm giving it, Barry, whenever you listen to this, I'm giving a big shout out to Barry. I'm hopefully he'll find it funny that we called him Barry.
Yeah. I hope so too. You know, actually, he loves the show Barry. I think he can hear me through the wall right now, and I'm pretty sure. But he loves Barry, so he's going to absolutely love the fact that we call him Barry.
Okay, I love Bill Hader.
Yeah, and he's just and a big part of, I think, what's been super healing for both of us is that while I was in this relationship, he was actually in a very tumultuous relationship with somebody who might also be a cluster B personality. She just she was very jealous, did a lot of similar things, you know, not to the same degree that my boyfriend did, but she definitely would triangulate. There was a lot of love bombing going on. And, you know, so we broke up with both of them within about a month of each other. And so, you know, we talk about, like, the things that happened and, you know, what was so just like, what the hell? You know, so not only, you know, just us getting along really well, but also, like, we kind of just have a lot of similar, like, parallel experiences. We just happen to be going through something similar at the same time, like, all the time. And, yeah, like, it was good to know, like, I really, like, wasn't alone in that feeling. Like, wow, he's going through this. And I mean, I have another really good friend from when I was 13, and he had just broken up with his boyfriend, you know, like, at the time, after a long, just, you know, year and a half of a lot of gaslighting and emotional manipulation and control. You know, it's really nice to be able to, like, talk about this with both of them, and, like, they understand it. Like, they know what I'm talking about. They know the feeling. I, like, remember my friend, we'll call him Jesse. Jesse, before he broke up with his boyfriend, he was, like, saying how he would always just, like, feel so just overwhelmed after he left. And he's like, and I just would need to call him or talk to him or something. He's like, but also I was just so, like, I was hurting so bad. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm like, did you have that feeling after you got into an argument, like a really bad argument, and you, like, felt so down about yourself, and you were like, I need something to make me feel better, and you felt like the only thing that was going to make you feel better was that exact person that made you feel that way? And he's like, ah! He literally screamed in that moment because I hit it on the nail for him. And I mean, that's how trauma bonding works. It's just, that's how you connect, is you just hit somebody with a horrible, horrible argument, love bomb them, reel them back in. And, you know, it's painful. I mean, it was so painful. And, you know, I remember, like, you know, thinking about it and asking Jesse these questions and, like, just feeling the same thing again. And, you know, just in that moment, we both knew what that felt like, and it was freeing. It was healing.
Yeah, like when I started the show, I didn't realize what I was actually doing, in the sense where people share their stories. Then when people listen, you know, it's nice to hear everyone that has gone through the same thing, because people who haven't had it happen to them don't really fully understand the emotional damage it does. And just to hear someone that had the exact same thing happen, it makes you feel a lot better, because you don't feel as probably dumb or like feel the shame or the guilt, because you're like, oh, you know, just, you know, we've been conned.
Yeah, exactly. I feel so tricked. I mean, even Jesse was actually the first person that said this, that made it click for me, was like, he felt so conned, so, you know, so tricked. Like, he's like, I feel fooled. He's like, he made me be the fool, you know? And I was just like, that is so true. Like, I feel I feel absolutely tricked, because back to what I was saying earlier, like when I didn't know what I wanted out of this, like I was just interested in getting to know this person on a different level. And then all of a sudden I'm talking marriage with this person and children. I'm like, whoa. There's so many things that I still want to do with my life. Like, I don't even know if children are in my equation. And, I told him that, you know, I'm like, I don't think I really have the emotional carrying capacity, or, you know, I don't think I can do the emotional labor for more than one child. I'm like, I want to be able to give my all, you know, and be able to be, and, you know, to give my attention in the right amount. And he's like, no, we're having more than that. And I was like, why do you get to decide that? Like, why do you get some claim on my body, you know? And, it was, you know, frustrating. It was just like, no, like, this is not what I signed up for. I just wanted to enjoy, like, our relationship. I just wanted to enjoy you, like getting to know you. And I'm not enjoying this.
And these are the types of people that we date. And before we close down our conversation here, what is the wisdom that you would like to impart on others who might be going through the same thing?
Well, mostly this is for the ladies. Listen to your intuition. Believe it. Believe what you're feeling. You know, don't, you know, listen to the red flags, educate yourself on like what those red flags are and what they look like, because they're not how you think they do. If it's starting to feel like, you know, it's like a discovery, like ID situation, get out. You know, I think just kind of learning to not engage, with these kinds of people, in the sense like when you find yourself in a situation with them, like you don't want to give them too much. You give them as little as possible. You call gray rocket. And, you know, that way you can't give them any fuel. You can't give them fuel. But don't think that it's your fault either. Not your fault. That's a big one. It's not your fault.
All right. So, Sunny, I want to thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure. To Barry, big shout out to Barry. Love you.
Love you, B.
Jesse, who I was just introduced 3 minutes ago in this conversation. I like Jesse too.
Yes.
And maybe one day I'll have Barry on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely suggested your podcast to him. I was like, it's really cool. Like, you should listen to it. It's really healing.
Tell him to hit subscribe and then to give me a 5-star rating on iTunes.
Okay, I will definitely. Because I think he would listen when he found out that you were Canadian. He just wait, is there like a super Canadian accent? I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely times where I'm like, that is not my accent.
No, sorry, say that again.
It's just like, it's not my accent. Like, it does not sound like me. I don't pronounce like certain words like that. So it's definitely like interesting. Like when I listen to you talk, I'm like, wow, I totally learned a way different pronunciation.
Do I have a Canadian accent?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, I do.
Do I have a Californian accent?
I don't know what that would even sound like.
Very drawn out.
See, I stress my A's, so sometimes people think that I am not Canadian and that I might be Floridian.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's very confusing for some people. Because I'm from Toronto, wow. I don't really consider that Canada because it was a big city. Everyone else, everywhere else in Canada, to me, is Canada. If you're small town Canada,
I've been to,
you know, that's where you get the real accents.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. I don't hear it all that much, but there's like certain words like, I think a lot of people out here learn how to say process. Like we say process, but I hear you say process. I hear a lot of different people say process. I'm like, whoa, that's really different
I
from
say
what
process.
I
don't say process. I say process.
Oh, what?
I'm a processor.
I thought I'd heard you say, oh, wow. I feel crazy now.
Yeah, and I say about. I don't know if that's correct. That's the one everyone gets.
Oh, no, yeah. I definitely don't hear it in everyone's classic stereotype word, about.
Anyway, let's, we both have to go to bed. Well, actually, I have to go to bed. Yes. You have like probably a good solid 3 hours before you have to go to bed. You might watch Stranger Things or something like that.
Maybe I'll start Umbrella Academy.
There you go. So thank you for being a part of this once again, Sunny. And for everyone else listening, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And you'll probably hear me give me one last message on the way out. So have a great night, everyone. And that was my conversation with Sunny. It was a winding road with some surprises along the way. And for everyone out there who is dealing with domestic abuse and you need help right away, please contact these phone numbers depending on what country you're in. If you're in the United States, 1-800-799-7233 is the domestic violence or abuse hotline. In Australia, it is 1-800-RESPECT. That is RESPECT. In England, it is 0808-2000-247. And sadly, in Canada, I found out, my home country, there isn't one. And I was shocked and I was disgusted. You can, whatever province you're in, you can call 211, and from there, it's like a social services hotline, and they'll connect you eventually to a phone number that you need to get. But we don't have one, and I was in shock. So shame on Canada in a huge, huge, huge way. Hopefully, maybe we'll do one of those change.org petitions, because I can't believe this is even a thing. So besides that, I just want to thank Sunny once again for being part of the show. And before I leave, just a reminder to visit our Reddit page if you want to discuss today's episode. Go to reddit.com and look up the subreddit Narcissist Apocalypse with a capital N on the narcissist and a capital A on the apocalypse. Also, once again, if you want to be on the show, you can always reach out at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com. Just drop us a line. And if you want to read a letter to your narcissist for our Letter to a Narcissist show, we have a voicemail recorder on our website to record. Go to narcissistapocalypse.com. It's on the right side of the page, and it's always floating around and hard to miss. We're accumulating these letters for our show for Volume 2. And now that's it. The nap is over. And until next episode, take care of yourselves.